Hello and welcome to the Gothic Unicorn. Today I'm going to be making some ornamental pieces to go into your miniature scenes. Now these are pieces that have got a sort of witchy, ethereal kind of vibe to them, but they could work in other scenes. It all depends how you want to make them. So let's get on with it. The first thing I'm going to make is a decorative piece that is based upon the moon phases symbolism. This is a piece that I actually saw a YouTuber make using air dry clay, and you could make it with clay, air dry or polymer, but I'm just using my favourite recycled food packaging. This is a bit of a cereal box, and it is a bit because you don't need very much. Now there's been a lot of talk lately of, oh, you can't possibly use recycled cardboard for making miniatures because they won't last. Well, I've had my doll's house for 19 years and it's on its second serious incarnation. Is this going to be how it lasts for the rest of my lifetime? Probably not. I will no doubt change things out. I will see new things that I want to make. I will come up with new ideas and rooms will get repurposed. It's not a static display for me. I'm not making this for my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. I don't care. To be truthful, they're not going to want what I want. So I'm making it for me, and as long as the pieces that I make last a few years, I'll be happy. And to be fair, there are pieces that I made 3-4 years ago that are still being played with, not just on display, they're actively used on a regular basis. And this is by a child who doesn't know the meaning of the word gently. And I figure that if I can make cardboard furniture that can deal with that level of stress, making an ornament out of a piece of cereal box ain't a problem. So that's what I'm using, and I'm going to use a hole punch. Now you can, if you haven't got hole punches, cut pieces out with a cricket if you've got one. You could use a template. This just makes life easier. Honestly, it does. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by cutting out some circles, just some ordinary circles, and I excuse the noise. I would normally do this away from the microphone simply because it is a noisy task. And I've got 4 pieces there. That is actually going to make 3 pieces of my hanging, but we'll get to that in a bit. And now I need to do something a bit different. Now I'm going to do this because I do need to show you. I am going to cut out probably just under a half of the circle, and as you can see, I've now got a little notch taken out of my piece of card. I am going to repeat this. Well, I'm going to cut another one over the top of it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up something like, I want to go a bit further over, so maybe it's sort of at about the 2/3 mark instead of the 1/3. And I've got a crescent moon shape. Now I'm going to cut another one of these, but I'm not worrying too much if it is exactly the same, as long as it is about the same, and you'll see why shortly. So let's get this back on. For some reason it's not happy with this piece of cardstock today, but we shall persevere. And if I do that again, I've now got two very similar crescent moons. We don't need those two pieces, they can just go in the recycling. The next step is to glue things together because I want it to be thicker, so I'm going to use double-sided. So these I'm just going to glue together in pairs. These ones I'm actually going to glue onto some more of this board, sort of printed side to printed side, and then once that's dry I will actually cut that out manually. Obviously I'm going to cut it out manually, but you know what I mean. I'm not going to use the hole punch, I'm going to use scissors or a knife depending on what I decide is the best thing. So I'm going to go off and get gluey, and we'll come back when I've got my pieces sorted. I've got my pieces doubled up and glued, and I've cut out my crescent moons. They're not perfect, but I can actually fix quite a bit when it comes to putting the paint on, because that is going to be coming up quite quickly. Now I should say that for this version my hole punch is 6mm, which is about 3/8 of an inch, I think. I think that's what I figured it out as. It's not very big, but it's not ridiculously small that you can't actually work with it. Now I've got 4 pieces at the moment, I need 5. I need to cut one of these circles in half. So what I've got is I've got my little ruler and I've got my craft knife, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut across the middle. Now my blade is nice and sharp, but I'm deliberately not trying to cut it in one go because that's when you can easily muck up. So now I've got 5 pieces, and I can show you the arrangement that we're going for. We're going to have full moon, the 2 half moons, and then the 2 crescent moons. And that is the basic arrangement of the moon phase ornament. I don't quite know what to describe it as. I'm going to go off and paint this, and when I'm going to paint it in black and then silver. I'm going for a metallic look with this one. I have done a couple already, which I will show you once this is together, because you can decorate it any way you like to suit your miniature decor. You know, don't be constrained by the way that I do it, because anything goes. Now that my moon pieces are all painted, I'm ready to put the ornament together. Now this is going to be an hanging ornament, so I'm going to make a rope using some black embroidery thread. Now this is the 6-strand sort of standard embroidery thread that you get, and I'm using it with all the strands in place. Now what I've done is I have doubled over a piece, and I've made a loop at the one end by gluing the stuff together. Now I've decided that I'm going to add some beads to this version, so what I've done is I have rubbed some glue onto the bottom end of my piece, and I've been able to thread my little seed beads on. Now you'll see when I show you the other pieces what it looks like if you don't want to add beads, haven't got anything suitable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down onto my piece of non-stick stuff, and I'm going to get tiny bit of glue, and I'm going to put it on my onto my thread above the first bead, and it's that one, isn't it? This one will just get stuck on here, stuck into place. I'll move it around a little bit so I can position it a bit better, and then I'm just going to leave that for a moment to actually grab. This glue is brilliant, it's nice and tacky, but you do need to let it just grab a bit. So now I've done that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to push that little bead a little bit closer to the moon. Not too close, because I do want a little space between them, and then I'm ready to glue the next pieces on. So I'm going to go and do that, and then I'll show you how I finish it up. Now, what I've done before I stick the last crescent moon into place is I've actually put a bit of glue onto my thread to make sure that it's nicely stuck together, and I'm going to put a bit more glue over the top where I want my actual moon to go, and we'll pop this one in place. And make sure it's nice and even, maybe a little bit further up. Now, you could include extra bead at the bottom if you wanted, but I don't think that it is necessary. But now I've got my little run of moon phases. Now I'm going to cut the bottom off so far below where the end is, and I get rid of that little bit that I used as a needle earlier. And then what I've got is I've got my loose bit here that I haven't got glue on, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my scissors, because I can't spy my my little metal pokey tool at the moment, and I just spread out the ends so that it looks sort of a bit like a tassel. And with that, I'll take that sheet away. You've got my moon phases hanging ornament. Now this one I've done in the silver. I've gone for a metal effect. I went with silver because silver is a colour that I associate with the moon, rightly or wrongly. It's just what I associate with it. Now the original one that I did, I made same way, just without the beads, and I've painted this in a creamy colour, so it looks like it might be ceramic. Again, I've used the embroidery thread, this time in a brown, so it looks more like a string, it looks more naturalistic. And then I've made a third one, which is for a particular spot in my doll's house, for a particular character. And this one I painted white and added glitter glue over the top. I actually added 2 coats of glitter glue to give these pieces a really sparkly, dimensional look. You can decorate it however you want. This one's done obviously with a much bigger circle. It's actually the next size up, which I think is maybe 5/8 of an inch, something like that. It just works because, you know, that will work in the scheme that I've got going on. But now I've got obviously 3 different variations on this moon phases ornament. My second piece is perhaps less ornamental and is a bit more specific. This is something that's aimed at the miniature fortune teller. You might be able to adapt it to suit some other use, but this is another make that I've actually got the idea from a real scale make that somebody posted on YouTube, and I thought, I wonder if I can make that in miniature, because it'd be really cool. Well, I've managed it, and I'm going to show you what I did rather. Now, for this one, you're going to need a miniature pack of tarot cards. As you can see, I have got my little stack of tarot cards. Now, this is some that I made myself from scanning some real cards that I own into the computer and reducing them in size. I showed these on my decorating my fortune teller's table video, and all I've done for this is I've taken one of the front cards and a number of the backs of cards, and I've glued them together. I haven't bothered with a box, anything like that. You could use any that you can find on the internet. You can find printable ones, but I used mine. I glued them together, and then I've gone around the edges with a distress marker. You can use any kind of ink just to make it look a bit older, because the real cards aren't really nice and white on the edges. So we start off with that, and we're going to make a combination wrap and travel reading mat for tarot cards. So we're going to need some fabric. So I've actually got two fabrics here. I've got a dotty fabric, and then it's managed to bury itself. I've got this black and cream floral fabric. You could use anything, colours that go with your witchy aesthetic, colours that go with your fortune teller doll, or as you imagine your fortune teller in your head. And what I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to start off by taking a piece of the fabric, and I actually want two square, well, we don't want two pieces, and I've cut this one, and we'll just, this one is about 1.5 inches, just under 1.5 inches. I'm actually aiming for it to be about 1.25 inches when I finish it off. And then this is about 2 inches, and I probably need it to end up being about 1.5 inches when I'm done. Now I'm going to cut a piece of the other fabric, and then I'm going to fray check the edges. Now I just do it by using my ordinary glue. I will draw around quite a thick line of the glue onto the fabric on the reverse, and then let that dry. Quite a thick, but I don't rub the glue into the fabric, if that makes sense. I don't really want the glue to mark the front, and this doesn't. It just allows me to cut it down to the size that I want without it all fraying. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to prepare my other piece of fabric and then add glue to them, and then we can actually get on with the making. With the glue all nicely dried, what I've done is I have started to cut these out, and what you do is you actually cut along the glue lines, and that doesn't look particularly straight, but we can sort that out in a bit. And what I've done with this one is I've actually cut around 3 sides, and I don't know if you can actually see, if I move this in the light, the sort of shiny line where the glue is. On the other side there's no sign of it. This is why I like doing it with this glue. It doesn't tend to soak through and stain. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along the glue line. You can be more exact than I am. You can draw a line where you want to cut, but that will do for me. And now there I've got my 2 pieces, which are going to be my inner and outer edges. Now I know they're not exactly right. I'm going to trim them once it's all stuck together. But before we do that, the next stage is to prepare a tie for the wrap thing. Now this one, which I prepared as my sort of sample, it's just the same fabric. I've used some braided embroidery thread. I think I'm going to just use some ordinary embroidery thread this time though, and of course it's got tangled around everything. Make it a bit thinner. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare this by deciding how much I want and cutting it down, and then I'm going to put some glue on each end just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. So my other one, I've got that much. I'm going to put a little bit more because I need some to go inside, so we'll cut off about that much. And if I just measure that, that's about 6 inches. Yeah, measuring that against my ruler, which is off camera. So I've got about 6 inches of thread there, and I'm going to take some glue, which of course I haven't got ready because I'm not on the ball this morning. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end of this and I'm going to put a bit of my glue on, as I was doing when I made the moon ornament. And all it does is it'll stop it coming loose at the end. I don't want lots because I don't want it really hard. And that, oh, excuse me, I'm going to put some glue on this end, but I'm going to put quite a bit more, and I want to get it on to both sides. So I'm probably going to end up using my fingers to just make sure it's all in the right place. And I'm going to put this onto one side of this, and I'm just going to smooth it down like so. Now what this will do is this will just glue that to the fabric, and it will make my life a bit easier. Now I'm going to decide which way around this goes, which way is the best way. I think it's that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some more of my glue with my cocktail stick, and I'm going back around the edge with a good dose of glue because I'm gluing this together. I'm not sewing it. You could, but to do a really nice job, obviously you need to sew it and turn it right side out, you know, sew on the wrong side. And at this scale, that's a faff. And I'm not looking for a faff with this. I'm looking for something that is a nice, fairly easy little project to make. So we will stick this over the top. We will line it up on this piece, and we will like that. And as you can see, I've got too much of the purple. The purple was left a bit longer, so it doesn't matter. I will trim that off once it's all dried, and I can trim off any bits around there. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up a board just to protect my mat. I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to bring in my iron. Now if you've got a proper craft iron, by all means use your craft iron. I've got a travel iron that I use for this sort of thing. I'm going to knock everything flying off the edge of my desk. And all that I need to do is go around the edges of this and seal the glue, set the glue. It just sets it quicker. Those craft irons are nice, but I couldn't find one that wasn't ridiculous money when I was looking for one. And I picked up a little travel iron for a few pounds, and it does the job adequately. Now as you can see, where I've actually ironed it, the glue is set, and now what I need to do is I just need to trim it. So I'm going to start off with the bit that's bit too long. I'll trim that off. And then I've got another little bit here. If you are more exact at your measuring than I am, you don't need to do this trimming. But this is because I sort of eyeball a lot of things and end up cutting off the excess later on. And I really need to concentrate on cutting that, and I'm not concentrating properly. So anyway, there I've got my basic little wrap, and I've got a bit showing on that side. So I'm going to just finish off my trimming off camera, and then I'll show you how it all goes together. Now that my wrap is all trimmed up, I'm going to show you how to fold it. I've got my little set of tarot cards, and what you want to do is you want to begin by folding over top and bottom. That's all you do. Make a little parcel. If you've measured it right, which I have here, they don't really overlap. I've got the slightest little bit of an overlap, and then you can fold in the side without the thread. Now if you want this to look neater, what you can do is you can fold it how you want it to be, roughly. Fold it over like that, grab your iron and just sort of set some of those creases in a little bit. Not perfectly, obviously, because you've got to put that in, but you can do that and do that. And then you fold it in the end without the thread, and then you wrap it around. Now it doesn't make for the neatest. Let's try and get this a bit neater. I'll put it a bit more in towards the middle, maybe. Come on. And fold up that. Takes a bit of practice. Fold that in. I'm still getting it. I'm still getting it lopsided, and that's okay. It takes practice. As I say, wrap it round. It's just not going to do it, is it? Anyway, once you've got it wrapped, my other one wrapped far better than this. I think perhaps the floral fabric is a little bit on the thicker side. Let's try this. Fold it in. Yeah, okay. And what you do is you wrap your thread around your little bundle, and then you need something like the cocktail stick, because what you want to do is you want to loosen up your wraps enough to put the end that you glued previously through there. And we'll pull that out and we'll pop that through. I think I need to get my tweezers out. My fingers are all not being very obedient. And anyway, that's how it works. And you get your little wrap for your tarot cards so that your witch can go, or your witch, fortune teller, whatever, can take her cards with her. And yeah, it's simple, but I hope you like it. For my final make, I'm going to make something that is far more generic. Well, it can be far more generic. Obviously, I'm looking at it from the aesthetic of a spooky, witchy, fortune telling kind of a vibe. But the sky's the limit with this. We're actually going to be making a little wind chime, or if you think it's a bit too much of a stretch to call it a wind chime. It's a mobile hanging decoration, and to do it I'm going to be using a earring finding. Now I've pulled a few of these out of my stash. You've got a circular one, I've got some art shaped ones, I've got these smaller art shaped ones which have got a lot more hanging loops. They would make a really good wind chime. I will get around to that one day. And then the one I've chosen to do is actually this one, which looks a bit like a spider's web, but is actually meant to be a dream catcher, which I thought was quite apt under the circumstances. Obviously, what you choose depends on what you can get and how you want it to look. Those ones I picked up from a store locally. These ones I bought off the internet. They don't cost a great deal. These I think cost about £1 for a pair, because you'd normally buy them in pairs doing earrings. These, I'm not sure, but it wouldn't have been that much. They'd work out at pence each. So that's my basis for my piece. So we'll move these out of the way. And then the next step is to decorate it. Now obviously, if you're going to go for the wind chime look, you need something that is chime-like. And I like using these bugle beads. Now these are twisted ones because they're what I happened to pull out this morning. And I like the silver ones because they can look like the metal chimes you get on some wind chimes. The black ones, obviously, if you want that spookier aesthetic. I'm going to be using some seed beads because I'm not really going for the full wind chime effect. I just want it to look like a yes, I'll think in a minute, like a dream catcher kind of ornament piece. I've also got some beading wire. This is 24 gauge, which I think should be quite adequate for my purposes. And I've got some head pins. These are another jewellery making finding. They have a pin head at one end and then just a wire. They're great because you can thread your beads on and they won't fall off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 3 dangly pieces to hang down, and then I'm going to do something up there. We'll move the bugle beads because I'm not using them. That it will hang from. That's going to be done using the beading wire. So what I'm going to do is, because I've got to throw some beads around, I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'll come back and show you what I'm doing. Now, I actually decided that I was going to use the bugle beads after all. And all I've done is I've threaded one of my little seed beads, a bugle bead and a seed bead for each of the 2 outer droppers. For the central one, I'm going to add an extra bugle bead and an extra seed bead, so that will be longer. Now, to make this so that I can attach it onto there, all that I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it off with my wire cutters, and I'm going to use a pair of round nose pliers, which are this sort, and I'm going to make a loop. Now I've actually made this a little bit bigger than I might have done otherwise because I want you to be able to see it, but I've got a loop which I'm then going to feed, move out of the way, onto there. And then what I need to do is I need to close the loop. Now I can do that with these, just sort of twist it round, and then I can, I can get my flat nose pliers and squeeze it up a bit. And then I've got my 3 hanging pieces of my wind chime. We'll call it a wind chime. No, it's not going to make a lot of noise because then they don't jangle together. Now, these pliers that I'm using are jewellery making pliers. They are smaller than ones you might get in the tool department, and they are really handy for working with the miniature stuff because obviously you're working with it on a smaller scale, but you can, if you're careful, use bigger ones. I just happen to have them because jewellery making is something else that, as I might have said previously, I've dabbled in lots of crafts. Now, to make the hanging piece, I want a piece of wire. I'm probably going to go for something about that long, about 5 inches maybe, 4 or 5 inches. And what I'm going to do, is I'm going to just feed this through here, and I'm going to, without being too technical, twist the wire together. There is probably a technical term for this, and there's probably people out there that who are better at jewellery making and this sort of stuff than me that are going, no, don't do it like that. Well, it works. It's not brilliant, but it works. You could use a eye pin, which is like the head pins, but it's got a loop at one end. But I don't think that's necessary for what I'm doing. Now, I think all I'm going to do on this one is use some of these little seed beads. And as you can see, it's not going to go onto there because that is twisted out for far too much. Sometimes you can get a bead that's bigger. I'm going to just stop the camera a minute and I'm going to see if I can find a little bigger bead that can go on there just to cover that up. I've been and had a look at what beads I'd got lying around without having to go digging into the depths of the craft stash, and I found a skull. He's one of these not very realistic skulls, but I do like using them for little pieces. Now, I could paint him, but I may just leave him white, and he covers up a multitude of sins, i.e. my messy wire wrapping, twisting, whatever. And on top of his head I'm going to put 3 more of these. Now, I've just twisted that around my finger, and I'm just going to twist this a bit, which is going to give me, once I trim it off, a hanging loop, and yeah, that should work. So I'll trim that off in a moment, but as you can see, I've now got my spooky dreamcatcher wind chime, and doesn't show very well on camera because obviously the camera's above me, but he actually hangs pretty well. So, really pleased. In addition to my take on the dreamcatcher, I've got another little version I've made here using one of the circular earring findings, sometimes called a earring chandelier because you get lots of bits hanging off it. Again, I've just gone with this little skull because can't beat skulls, not in a spooky aesthetic. I haven't painted them as I sometimes do. I could do if I wanted, but it's not the end of the world. This one's got a skull with a little pearl bead, and then hanging off as my chimes I've got some bugle beads and some pearl beads on my head pins, and then just a little loop that I've made to hang it up. looks great. It's a really easy little ornamental piece to make, and you could do it without the jewellery findings. If you are relatively skilled with some wire, you could make your own shape with the wire and attach pieces. I'm not. I'd got some jewellery findings and I've bought some more when I've spotted them, because I thought, oh, I can use that. And then I look at my stash of pieces and think, I really need to actually make something with those rather than just buying them. So yeah, here we have my little wind chimes, for want of a better description, just made from beads and jewellery bits. And here we have my little selection of witchy, fortune teller, spooky, maybe ornamental pieces that can be used to pad out a scene, or you can use them as more a centerpiece in a scene. It's all up to you. Again, you know, not to everybody's taste. Certainly the wind chimes can be adapted for any scene. You know, you can have something quite light and airy that could be almost fairy-like. I'm loving my little tarot card wrap, and of course my moon phase, which I think is perfect for many alternative miniature scenes. If you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you have, please like, comment and subscribe, and until next time, bye.